Okay, this is my collection, my props, and my books. Shows the pictures of my books. I have some chopsticks for my chopsticks or clever sticks book. I have a few little family quotes and diversity pictures in different families from my diversity picture collection. My books. And then I included some extra books that I really liked. My Mama's Kitchen. Virgie Goes to School with Us Boys. And then I did my diversity picture collection. Shades of People. A family cookbook that we made in our family. Some more chopsticks from Matt. These little popsicle stick or wood stick puppets to retell to show like a family can be one person and their pet, a blended family or a mixed family. It can be many different shades. It can be a bigger family including grandparent, different diversities. This one has a pet bird. This is a blended family, the dog. And this one is just a single dad and two children who are very different and their pet. So these could be played with. These are some of my diverse picture collection cards that show different families and different cultures, as well as them eating. This is another one of the books that I did not include on mine. I really liked The Cow Who Climbed a Tree. Got a cow who's kind of stepping outside of the box. And then, of course, we all love Llama Llama, and this is Llama Llama, Graham and Grandpa, about a little llama who goes and stays with her grandma and needs a little thing. And then this one is Meet Wild Boars, about a boar family who gets a bad rep for just being rude and dirty and all. But anyway, they're fun books, and there's some more things. Okay, and so now I will do my book talk. Is different, just like me. It's about a little girl who goes through the day and sees different things and different people and starts recognizing how they are different from her, and then starts to also see how that they are the same, from how they go to the elevators. It's a little long. I would probably reduce it down a little bit, but the overall message behind the book is wonderful because it shows that we are all very different, but we have similarities also. So I would use this in the classroom whenever there's a question about children being different and being the same. Well, it's a really sweet book. This book was a lot of fun. You have to read this book. It's The Golden Egg. It is about adoption, but it's told from a different, fun, cute tale where it is a golden egg who is a special chicken who is not yet hatched. And its mom goes through and it has a little thing in the front too talking about adoption, how adoption rocks. There's this mama who has the egg who is thinking about it and loves her egg but doesn't think she can take care of it. And then there's this chicken who sits and dreams about having an egg and a baby of her own and can't have it, just like people. And so she decides, and she's thinking about how she doesn't think she can do the best for the egg, and she's thinking about all the things that could happen if she were to allow her chick to have a better home. So this little chicken goes walking along and is very sad, wishing she was a mom, and sees the egg with a note on it that says, "Give him all that I could not." And she gets very excited, and so she ends up raising the little chicken, and she reminds him that he was a gift from his mom, and so to please in his prayers at night to remember to thank her for allowing him to have the life that he did with his mom, so that he still loves both of his moms, the one who gave birth to him and then the one who has raised him. So it's a very, very, very sweet book, and it is a story about adoption again. And I forgot to tell you, it's written by Jenny and Phil Thrasher, and it's illustrated by Enrock Illustrations. Okay, and then this one was by Lori Mitchell. Okay, all right, and then this book, whenever I first found it, I thought it was going to be and as you're reading it, you think maybe it is a two mommy family because it's two Mrs. Gibsons, and it's by a story by Toyamoya I Gus. I can't say it, and the pictures are by Daryl Wells, but it's obviously a different from a different place. It's a culturally diverse book. But as you read it, you find out that all the differences, like that this is Miss Gibson is very old fashioned, and this one is kind of shy, and she is Chinese or Oriental, and then she is African American. And they go through the little girl goes through talking about how they're different and how they read differently, and they're from different places. Her mom shows her where she's from, how one Mrs. Gibson fixes her hair one way and one fixes it another, and how they sing differently and they do all these different things. And then finally, as you go through, it talks about the differences in the cultures and everything, but it also, in the end, says that there's a common love, that they both love her. The one Mrs. Gibson is her mama, and the other is her grandmother, and her daddy is the common factor in her, that both Miss Gibsons love her daddy and love her. So it's a very, very sweet book, and that is and it shows you how to make the paper cranes in the back, and so that's why we did the paper crane, so you can incorporate like some origami into the lesson with this. So that was that. And then another book I had is Clever Sticks. And it's about this little Chinese boy who goes to school, and he starts, it's by Bernard Ashley, and it's illustrated by Derek Brazil. And anyway, it's a little boy, and he's noticing how that a lot of the kids in school can do things better than he can, or he feels like that they can, and he's feeling kind of lost because he doesn't understand a lot of things because he is not from the same places that they came from. But it's a very cool, diverse book. It has a lot of different children from different places in it. But what ends up happening in the story is that he finds out he goes to have a snack, and he goes to pick up the snack, and he sees the paintbrushes sitting there on the table, and he picks them up and starts using them like chopsticks, and he picks up his broken cookie off of the plate, and so then everybody starts saying, oh, that's so cool, so he learned something that he does really well, which is something that's natural for him because that's the way that they eat. And so then everybody starts saying, can you show me how to do that? And so they go through the whole thing, and then the teacher even wants to learn, and they all break up their cookies, and they kind of make it a lesson. So they use that as an intentional teaching moment, which is really cool. And so then he tells his dad at the end of the story about what's happened, and the other kids then start showing him how to do the things that they're really good at. So they all start working together in their family community of school, and at the end they're all going to their families and the daddy calls him clever sticks, that he found something that was his calling, and that was to be clever sticks. Anyway, cute book. Okay, so this is one of my favorites. It's All Kinds of Families, and it's by Mary Ann Hoffman, and it's illustrated by Mark Boyan Tennant. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, this is a very fun book. It just kind of goes through. It has great illustrations. I would use it with children just to show anytime you're talking about families and what a family is. It just basically goes through and says, yes, a family can be a mama and a daddy and a baby, but it could also, if you look at the world a little bit differently, you can see that the stars are a family, rocks are a family, your food in your refrigerator and your eggs in your egg carton can be a family, bottle caps and snails and sheep and squirrels and all kind of things can, if you group them together, your fingers are a family. And it just kind of goes through and shows different families. Like a family can just be a person and their pet. It can be ginger snaps, bottle caps, buttons, and rings. It rhymes. It has great phonological awareness. It is just the sweetest, cutest book. Bright, happy colors. You just kind of go through, just to give you an overview of this book. But I had to buy it because I loved it so much. And it also has numbers in it, and says that numbers is can be families. And this is what I made the little wooden stick puppets from for retelling of stories, to show that there are all kinds of families, and no family is better than the other family. But anyway, it's a really, really, really sweet book, and I would say please look at this, or ask to look at mine if you want to. I really love it. It's fun. You can do math and science and all kinds of things with that book, bringing in sorting and making collections, and going out and looking on a nature walk and just see what kind of things you think might be a family. Okay, and then my next book is Divorce is the Worst, and it's written and illustrated by Anastasia Higginbotham. This is a really neat book. It goes in the little boy in there talks about how things are happening, and it's the way that it's made. It would be a great book to also put in an art center, because it's made out of fabric and paper, every piece of it, and pieces of brown paper bags. So the clothing is just pieces of cloth, and it's just drawn on brown paper bag. And so you could really do a lot with it in a art center. But anyway, it tells about how the mom and dad are fussing, and then they tell him that they're getting a divorce, and he thinks his life is ruined and nothing's going to be the same, and that everything is broken, and he's broken and heartbroken and all this. And so they use magazine pictures too in the background with realistic things broken into it. And it says, how his feelings are, that he gets angry and he gets sad, and so it talks about a lot of emotions, which is a really good thing to say. You don't have to feel happy because your family is getting a divorce, and he gets in a fight and he hurts himself, he doesn't get in a fight, he falls, and because so much is going on, and his mom and dad have a lot going on with their own emotions, they don't even notice that he's been hurt. And so then and he just doesn't even want to talk about it. But anyway, whenever it goes all through it, it talks about how they have their reasons, and he starts seeing the reasons around, and how he feels like he's being pulled in 3 different directions, which is, I'm sure, what happens a lot of times with the kids whenever their parents are splitting up. But anyway, in the end it says, you stay in one piece. So you stay in one piece. So even though things are broken, you can still stay as one person. And then it has a lot of really neat things in the back and tips what you can do if you have a child who is struggling, and it gives you some hints of some places that they can go and hide and the ways that they're feeling. So anyway, it really talks a lot about how children are feeling and what's going on. But anyway, this is a great book for if you have any children who their parents are splitting up. This is another book, Little P. It's by Amy Krause Rosenhalt, and it's illustrated by Jen Cordance. And this is a completely different take on being diverse and having different beliefs or things from different cultures, especially about the way that you eat. So I thought this was kind of fun and different. It's a pea mama and a pea daddy and a pea baby. And he's talking about all the things that he does with his little pea friends, and they swing and do things at the park, and they're playing and having a good time. And then it's time for supper, and their supper is candy, and he doesn't like candy. It's kind of like eating vegetables, and where kids normally don't like to eat vegetables, he doesn't like to eat candy. So he has to eat 5 pieces of candy, so you can incorporate math into this book. And then he goes through the counting down of how many left he has to eat. He has one down, yuck, and then he does 2, and then 3 and 4 and 5, until he's eaten all of his candy. And then he gets to have his favorite thing, which is his dessert, which is spinach. And he is so excited because he finally gets to have his spinach. So it's a really cute, just kind of fun book with a different take on it. Okay, and then this is Mango, Boule, and Me. So it's about how they don't, the grandmother comes to live with them, and they can't communicate because they can't understand, she can't understand her language, and the grandmother has trouble being able to communicate to the little girl, or to, and so they have a tough time figuring out how to accept each other because they're from far away, but the grandmother has to come and stay with them. But eventually what happens is they come up with ways to, and the grandmama's missing her home too and her bird. So they find a bird in a pet shop and end up buying the bird to take, and the bird helps with the communication. So then the little girl recognizes that if the bird can help with communication, then she can help with communication. So they start off small, and then they start labeling things in English and in Spanish, and so that then so it's a bilingual book, and then by the end they're both fluently speaking each other's language, and so they have a great relationship and can read stories to each other and talk. So it is overcoming obstacles that come in the way with family, and accepting each other and working together to be able to be a family. So really, really cool book. And this book was not on my list, but I really loved it. It was In My Mama's Kitchen. And it just talks about how that, just real quickly, how everything good happens in her mama's kitchen. It's kind of like just a cultural thing where that all the aunts get together and they all bring different potatoes and vegetables and stuff, and they get together and they cook together in the kitchen, and they play games together in the kitchen, and their life just happens surrounded by the kitchen. And her dad has certain things he cooks in the kitchen. So anyway, it just kind of goes through it. I decided it was just too long for small kids, but you could definitely take some pieces out of this and use it. But I think that is all of my books. I hope that you have enjoyed them, and I will see you soon. Bye.